What is up, you guys? UFC 284. We have the #1 and #2 pound for pound best fighters on planet Earth throwing down. Now that should be the consensus here, with Israel Adesanya and Kamaru Usman just recently losing. Of course, those two men also could have thrown their name in the hat for being the best pound for pound fighters. Both those guys looking for redemption in the near future, so we'll see how things shake up. But the point being, the winner of this main event fight really will gain full control of the crown of the pound for pound best fighter in mixed martial arts. Currently, Alexander Volkanovski is #1 with Islam Makhachev ranked 2 over on UFC.com. So you know, this is a big deal if you really think about it. This has never happened before. We've never had the #1 and #2 pound for pound best fighters facing off. If you guys remember back in the day, for some of you old school fans, you know, there was all these talks and all these hopes of Anderson Silva fighting George St. Pierre, maybe a John Jones versus an Anderson Silva fight if Silva would have bumped up. None of those fights ever happened, and you know, sneakily, all of a sudden we have this matchup here, and it seems to be going right under the radar. Now that might be due to the fact that Islam just had somewhat of a resurgence. I mean, he's been doing his thing, but we know that he's slowly crept up on us. He's kind of been under the radar. Alexander Volkanovski, maybe he doesn't get the respect he deserves. I had one fight that was pretty close to Max Holloway. Maybe that has something to do with it. But I don't think this fight's getting the respect it deserves, in my opinion. So you guys know the routine. We're going to be jumping into every single fight throughout this fight card. We're going to be talking about how we think the fights are going to go. We're going to be talking about the betting lines, the betting odds, where we see the value. I think that this fight card, it's kind of similar to a boxing fight card, right? It's very top heavy. Of course, we all want to see how the main event's going to take place. We have 2 championship belts on the line. We have the interim featherweight championship between Yair, Rodrigues, and Josh Emmett. That's a good fight. Excited about Randy Brown and Jack Della, Maddalena, but then you will see a drop off on this fight card. There's no question about that. There's a lot of newcomers that are coming in, some guys that are stepping in that you're even questioning how they got an opportunity, as in the first fight with Elves Brenner taking on Tukhugov, which we know that unfortunately Zubaira Tukhugov's initial opponent, the Spaniard, did have to withdraw, so that's why that happened. But we're going to be jumping into all these fights. I hope you guys like the new setup with the video here. Real quick, if you guys could, please hit that like button. It means a lot to me. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. And if you guys are interested in my official plays, you guys know you can reach out to me via email, Instagram, Twitter, all that, and we can work something out. And real quick, I'm not going to be doing a recap of UFC Vegas 68. Now, the UFC card was a profitable one. We had 2 official plays on UFC Vegas 68. We had a 4-unit play on Marcin Tybura, got it at -135, and then we did have a 2-unit play on Jeka Saragi. Jeka did drop the ball, so we lost 2 units there. He had no takedown defense, unfortunately, and he couldn't showcase his striking. But the win on Marcin Tybura, bringing back more than the 2 units we lost there, and then essentially profiting over a unit on the UFC card there. So you know, it was a late night card, and I'm just excited to jump into this card. That's why we don't have time for the recap right now. We're working on a lot of things behind the scenes here. We have a big fight week, and we're jumping in to the first fight of this card right now.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
So unfortunately, Joel Alvarez did have to withdraw from this matchup with Zubaira Tukhugov. In steps Elves Brenner, the Diego Lima shootbox product. You know, let's cut right to the chase. You break down on Brenner. He has that typical shootbox type style. You see that he favors his Muay Thai and his striking. High guard, heavy leg kicks. He's slow though. He's definitely slow. I think that he's going to be in for some trouble. Yeah, it's a great thing that he's brushing shoulders with a guy like Oliveira, but when you break down tape, I'm just not overly impressed. He has 2 questionable losses as of recently. I really believe this is a case of just the UFC needing somebody to step in on short notice, and him being the man to step up. We'll say this, something to keep an eye on too. I'm curious how he's going to look making weight. He's a fighter that's fought at lightweight often recently, even fought some catchweight matches at 148 and whatnot. So I haven't seen the recent proven track record of him hitting that 145 marker, especially just on a short notice like this. So I'm curious if this fight's actually going to take place at featherweight. Zubaira Tukhugov, you guys know him. You think back to the days of him being involved in the Conor drama with Khabib and all that. He was one of the staples of Khabib's crew. Kind of goes under the radar. He's not the most active fighter. Definitely dabbles with the fight game, seems to be in and out of it. But one thing we do have to respect is he's a tenacious fighter. He's very aggressive. Of course, he has the grappling. He has good power too. He does believe in his striking. He'll go out there and he'll throw some bombs. He'll look to put you out. I expect Tukhugov to handle this fight real quick. And if just to point out some of the work that Tukhugov has put in, just to understand what kind of fighter he is. He's 20-5 right now. Victory over Ricardo Ramos, that's a respectable victory. 2 split decision losses to Hakeem Dawodu and Renato Moicano. Those are both respectable opponents in the game. Had the split draw against Lerone Murphy, and knockout victory over Kevin Aguilar, just showcasing his power there. But he's a fighter that can really just go out there and use his grappling and his wrestling and can go out there and take advantage of his opponent if they're not to par. I've seen Elvis Brenner taken down against lower level fighters, and smaller organizations. I don't see any reason that Tukhugov shouldn't go out there and really outclass him. That's how I'm looking at this fight. Elvis Brenner, only 25 years old. He's going to be green here. He's going to be in a little bit over his head, in my opinion. And that's the way I see this fight going. I see Tukhugov getting the finish, using his grappling, either finishing via ground and pound or submission down on the mat, just going out there and really just showing to be the better fighter. So, the line is obviously going to respect that. I'm sure everyone's in agreement. Right now, Tukhugov is a minus 575 over the UFC newcomer Elvis Brenner. I wouldn't be surprised if that line goes up to the minus 700, minus 800 range. Okay, so keep an eye on that. You might see a lot of line movement with this matchup here. If you want to consider that a lot of line movement, whatever. I mean, it's already a high line as we're speaking now, but my point is the line's going to hit some high numbers. I do believe that when people dissect this fight more and more, they're going to see that Elvis Brenner is really not deserving, in my opinion, and I think that will be the opinion of the masses as everybody dives into that. So that's how I'm thinking. I'm thinking Tukhugov gets a finish here. We got another fighter coming off Dana White's Contender Series who had an impressive performance, who now looks to make his UFC debut. Blake Bilder, taking on Shane Young, fighting out of City Kickboxing, one of the doppelgangers of another one of those City Kickboxing guys, if I remember correctly. Kai Kara France, I think, if I remember correctly. I think they look a lot alike. I might be getting that wrong, but I know he looks like one of those guys out there. Shane Young, he's won 2 of his last 5 fights. He's on a 2-fight losing skid. His last fight was almost 2 years ago where he lost to Omar Morales. Omar Morales, it's kind of hard to get a read on him. He's a guy that consistently loses, but fights decent talent and has looked good on a rare occasion. But overall, I haven't been that impressed with what I've seen from Shane Young. I don't like the fact that he hasn't been in there in a while. I mean, maybe he's been sharpening some things up. I mean, he surrounds himself with some good talent. But overall, when you pull up a lot of his old fights in the UFC, it's just he doesn't deliver. He really doesn't deliver. You see him here with Izzy. Izzy looking big there too. But, Shane Young, I mean, if you want to take a look into his 2 victories, Austin Arnett, not in the UFC currently. Rolando Dai, he had the knockout there. That was his big victory. That was 4.5 years ago. Rolando Dai, a guy that's not in the UFC either. And now you got this guy, Blake Bilder. Blake Bilder, he impressed me on Dana White's Contender Series. If you guys remember, the lead up to that fight on the show, he was a fighter that showed to be extremely confident in himself. This was a guy that was going out there. He was the underdog, if you guys also remember. And in his mind, there was no way he was losing that fight. And he went out there and got the first round finish. And he took out an opponent in Alex Morgan, who, I've heard nothing but great things about going into that fight. I knew a couple of guys that trained with him and whatnot, and they were letting me know on Instagram that Alex Morgan is the truth. And then Blake Bilder goes out there and he pulls off the rear naked choke victory. That was an impressive performance by Bilder. He took full advantage of that opportunity. He's 32 years old with 8 pro fights. You can look at that 2 different ways, right? I mean, he's a fighter that's pretty much in his physical prime right now. Doesn't have an overwhelming amount of experience, but you could look at that as a positive thing or a negative thing. I mean, this is a fighter that hasn't taken a lot of damage. He's in his physical peak right now. He's extremely confident, and I'm gonna roll with Blake Bilder here. I think that he's gonna go in here just feeling more comfortable, having been in the octagon just 4 months ago roughly, having that big victory. I'm gonna say that he takes the trip out to Australia, and he takes that confidence with him, and he just ends up being the fighter that's more talented and gets the job done. How about that? Both men 5'8". Shane Young will have the reach advantage, a 4-inch reach advantage, but I think that Bilder will use his grappling here and get the job done. How about that? Blake Bilder, a slight underdog. He's a plus 113. The comeback on Shane Young at minus 130. I mean, if Shane Young's going to have some success here, he's going to stuff takedowns, he's going to keep this fight on the feet, and he's going to show to be the better striker. We'll see if that's a possibility. Do understand that Bilder on the feet does throw with some power as well, and you never know when one of those wild fastballs clip, and maybe he drops Young. You never know. The fight game's crazy. Bilder's a guy that goes out there and looks to scrap. Give me Blake Bilder. Obviously, I'm feeling that there's more value on the Bilder line. You see some line movement on the Tukhugov fight right there. The Elves Brenner line, that was a sign of some slight money coming in on Tukhugov. Isn't that funny? We just talked about that. I know the Tukhugov line didn't necessarily move, but the movement on Brenner shows the trajectory of that line, as it just got a little bit better if you were looking to take Brenner, but you should not be looking to touch. Loma Lookboonmee taking on Elise Reed. We have a striking matchup here in the women's strawweight division. I like this matchup a lot. Elise Reed is a fighter that has definitely shown to have some flaws in her takedown defense and her grappling. We saw her absolutely get mauled by Sam Hughes. I don't expect that to be the case in this matchup here, as we know that Loma is the Muay Thai specialist, and she'll be more than willing to engage in the feet. And I think that Elise Reed will do the same. So I expect both these girls to go tit for tat. Let's cut to the chase here. Loma should be the more decorated striker here, but understand that Elise Reed does have some good head movement. She has some good striking. She has the potential to make this fight play out closer than I think some of you guys feel that this fight may play out. But let me be clear, Loma is a step above Elise Reed there. She has shown to be very talented with her Muay Thai, and I got to lean Loma here to get the job done. Loma recently coming off a victory against pretty much a no-name in Denise Gomez. Before that, the loss to Lupita Godinez, that was a fight where she had her takedown defense and her wrestling exploited. Again, we're not really focusing too much on that in this matchup. Before that, Loma takes out Sam Hughes, a common opponent, and also takes out Jin Yufrey. And then a loss to Angela Hill. That was a close matchup there. Keep in mind that Loma is only 27 years old. Again, she's a fun fighter to watch on the feet. She's a very fun fighter. And, real quick, talking about UFC Vegas 68, where we see a lot of these fighters coming from Asia and that side of the world, close to Thailand, countries close to Thailand. You see that Muay Thai in their game, that classic Muay Thai. I would love to see more of that. I would really love to see more classic and skilled Muay Thai fighters coming from that side of the world, coming into the UFC and really grooming their overall mixed martial arts skills out. And that's what you see with Loma. That's exactly what Loma's been doing, right? She had the Muay Thai background from when she was very young, and she's developing her overall mixed martial arts game. She's only 27 years old. I'm really excited to see how she's looking when she's 30, 31. I think that she's a fighter that hangs around in the UFC for time to come. She'll be at a 2-inch height disadvantage here and about a 1.5-inch reach disadvantage. That's nothing new for her. She is pretty much an undersized opponent in all of her matchups. That's just what it is. There's no UFC atomweight division, so she's not going to have a possibility to drop down in weight. It is what it is, and I think she'll do fine. She should get the job done here. Let's go take a look at the betting line here, where you'll see that Loma Lookboonmee, as I like to say it, it sounds a little feisty. Loma, why don't you Lookboonmee over here? Come Lookboonmee. All right. She's a minus 290, about a 3-1 favorite here. I say I like her here, but I think that line's it's a little fat in my opinion. Again, Elise Reed, she does some things well. She's a little flaky though. She'll do things well and then she'll kind of just crumble. But she's a flaky fighter, but she does have a decent skill set. Her striking is decent, and like I said, I think she has potential to make this fight play out closely. But she's gonna fall short in my opinion. Real quick though, just a fight that's worth noting. She's coming off a victory over Melissa Martinez. was able to go out there and get a victory over Corey McKenna. Corey McKenna is a very impressive opponent in that fight. She used her striking, right? And she scored some points against McKenna, got the job done there. So again, just understanding what she can do on the feet there. But again, does have major flaws in her ground game. If you think about what Sijara Eubanks did to her and what Sam Hughes did to her, I would love to see if Loma tries to shake things up a little bit, maybe mix in a trip takedown and gets on top and does something down there. That would be fun to see if she could do something like that and show some evolution in her game. I'm not sure if we'll see that. I think that we see Loma just kind of pick Elise Reed apart and get the victory. Unanimously, we'll take a unanimous decision, this fight going to a decision. Another fighter coming off Dana White's Contender Series that had a very impressive performance, making his UFC debut here, Jack Jenkins. He will be taking on Don Shainis. You know, it's really a shame because, Don has no shame in his game. Don, the shameless Shainis, he went out there in his UFC debut, and you saw a little bit of that. He had no shame. He went out there and just put on a disgusting performance against Sadiq Youssef. But, in all seriousness, Sadiq Youssef's an absolute beast. And I do believe Shainis possibly took that fight on short notice. That was a major ask for Don there to come in and take a fight. I think it wasn't short notice. You guys can check me on that. But to step in there either way in your UFC debut against Sadiq Youssef, that's a steep hill there. And Sadiq made quick work of him, got that guillotine choke, was just, a major step above him. Before that, Don was doing his thing on the regional scene, getting a handful of finishes. Took out Cody Pfister. You guys remember Cody Pfister? He fought in the UFC before. Wrestler, got the finish over Jay Ellis over at Cage Titans. So showing to have some skills that possess some danger to Jenkins. But I'll tell you what, everything I've been hearing about this cat Jenkins has been nothing but praise. The performance that he had on Dana White's Contender Series was very impressive. Shows to be a very well-rounded fighter, but could really put it on you with the grappling, can really push a pace and just go out there and look to smash his opponents. And I kind of feel that that's what we're going to see here. I think that Jenkins is going to be pushing the pace on Don. And if Don doesn't land some type of, as I like to refer to it, like a kitchen type of sink strike, and the reason why that comes to mind, I just picture somebody taking, a kitchen sink before it's installed in the granite and just whacking somebody upside the head and really shaking things up. I think that Don Shainis needs to land a big shot to shake things up here. Otherwise, tit for tat, I just think that Jenkins will become a nonstop and we'll get some takedowns. He'll push the pace with the striking and will just be the bully in there. That's kind of what I'm seeing here when I break down tape on these two guys. And again, what I've been hearing about Jack is that he's another fighter coming out of Australia. That's the truth. So we'll see how he performs here. He's 29 years old, about to be 30. He's not a spring chicken as he makes his UFC debut. So that's something to keep in mind too. But he's closer to the physical prime of his career, which isn't a bad thing. And the same could be said for Don Shainis. Jack, believe it or not, Jack will actually be an inch taller and will have a 1 inch reach advantage here. For some reason at first I thought that Don might have had that edge. That's not even the case. Jack has a solid frame. I'm leaning Jack to get the job done here. I think that Jack goes out there and bullies Don up a little bit. Minus 345 is the line on Jack Jenkins right now. I'm not crazy about that line. You guys know I've been a little stingy with how I'm assessing these lines as of recently. It's what I've been seeing from the game. A minus 345 line. I mean, you can't be attacking all these types of lines. Don't get me wrong. Don't get it twisted. There's definitely fights where you want to take advantage of a line like this. I mean, if you really feel with the specific fighter, it's a great matchup for him, and there's a very slim chance you could throw it in a parlay or something like that. But again, we talked about the fact that Don Shainis has gone out there and proven to shake things up at times. And go out there and finish the fight. Maybe he lands a big shot and shakes things up. Also, there's not a long track record of either of these fighters, right? They're both, Jack's making his UFC debut here. Don's only fighting in his second fight. It's hard to really assess him in that UFC debut against a guy like Sadiq Youssef. Maybe he was just in a little bit over his head. Maybe this is a matchup that's a little bit more even. These are things you got to look into, because before you know it, you throw a fat parlay together, and then these guys start throwing down in a very close matchup, and you're sitting there, gritting your teeth, and you're on the edge of your seat and saying, what the heck? So just understand that. But overall, yes, Jack does point to be the better fighter here. I mean, all things point to Jack being the better fighter here. I think he gets the job done. Not crazy about that line. I'll say there's more value on the Don Shainis plus 265 line. I mean, he's a ruthless guy. We already talked about the fact he has no shame in his game. So more value on Don, but Jack Jenkins should be the fighter that goes out there, gets the job done. Jamie full of Mullarkey taking on the UFC newcomer Francisco Prado. Very excited to see this kid Prado make his UFC debut. Only 20 years old, 11-0, a lot of finishes scattered throughout his resume. I'm very surprised that Francisco didn't already make a splash over on Dana White's Contender Series. I mean, he is the exact type of fighter you think that Dana would have wanted to have on the show. He goes out there, he finishes fights. He's a phenom. Now, we do need to see him facing off against higher level competition to get an exact read on what he's about. But I'm letting you guys know right now, he's a very, very fun fighter to watch. And you guys know the same could be said about Jamie Mullarkey. Francisco Prado, if you go over to YouTube and search him up, you will have the luxury of seeing a couple of his fights. You'll see them over on some small regional scenes down in South America. It looks like a husband and wife where we're making the bed with the canvas, pulling the sheets, on both sides of the bed, pulling the sheets and getting a little bit lazy. And you see the canvas folding over. People are tripping over the canvas and whatnot. It's one of those types of organizations, as you see the Samurai Fight House. People are jumping up in the back. They're actually some fun videos to watch. I'm sure it'd be a blast to be out there. I would love to be down there. I believe taking place in Argentina. We're going to take a look at that right now. Now, something I want you guys to take into consideration, man. I think that the Argentinian fighters are going to really start to step it up in the next couple of years here. Argentina is a country. And yes, dude, they are taking place in Argentina. That's where he's been fighting. Argentina is a country that has proven to put out a lot of stud athletes. Of course, Messi comes to name. They hold their own over in the soccer or football world. I really think that you're going to see them start to step it up as far as mixed martial arts goes. And Francisco Prado might be the fighter that leads that push and that movement. I'm telling you guys, go watch tape on the kid. But again, now keep in mind that he's fighting lower level competition, but he's an absolute pitbull. Then you got Jamie Mullarkey. He's coming off a victory against Michael Johnson in a very closely contested match. A lot of people thought that MJ won that fight. Before that, he gets knocked out against Jalen Turner. 2 wins before that against Devontae Smith and Kama Worthy. Kama Worthy's been getting slept left and right on the regional scene these days, so take that into consideration. But do understand that Jamie Mullarkey is a talented striker. He's a tough dude. He's a fun fighter to watch. And the things that he's going to have going for himself here is that he already has the luxury of throwing down, or having already thrown down in the octagon multiple times. He'll be a little bit more at home there. He's 8 years older than Francisco, so a little bit more mature, 2 inches taller, 3-inch reach advantage for Mullarkey. We know Mullarkey has some really good boxing. Those are some of the edges that he's going to have there. Mullarkey is going to be the favorite based on a lot of those factors that we just talked about. A lot of you guys are going to be on Mullarkey here. You're going to see the masses picking Mullarkey. I'm going to be shaking things up right now. If you guys aren't catching my drift here, I'm taking Prado to get the job done here. I love this kid. I like what I'm seeing from him. I really hope that he continues to impress and really continues to do the same things he was doing on the regional scene in the UFC. I really hope that's the case, because it was just a pleasure to watch him throw down on the regional scene. Just goes out there and just looks for that finish. And he's extremely young, coming off a first-round knockout there, another first-round knockout, a Von Flue choke in the 3rd round, so he's gone a little bit later in fights as well. You like to see that. Second-round finish there, an armbar finish in the 1st round. I mean, every single one of his fights here has been a via finish, but he also has reached the 3rd round. 67% of his fights and his wins have come by KO or TKO, 33% by way of sub. Not a lot of fights to analyze. 11 pro fights there. I'm taking Francisco Prado. I have a feeling that this fight is going to be a barn burner, and I could see Mullarkey getting clipped just as well as he may go out there and clip Prado. But I think that this is going to be one of those fights where they just throw down. They meet in the middle and they throw down, and the crowd's going crazy. I have a feeling that this will be that type of fight. Mark my words, because Prado does not back down, and neither does Mullarkey. Prado will run across the cage and just look to throw bombs. So one of these guys are going to get put down. Mullarkey was just recently knocked out by Jalen Turner. So we have seen him tested there. We have seen him put out. And again, I wasn't overly impressed with how he looked against Michael Johnson. I thought that he should have went out there and took that fight, and looked to have took a little bit of a step back in that fight. Although Johnson's been looking good, but still. So we take a look at the betting line here. Jamie Mullarkey is a -275. The comeback on the newcomer Prado is +220. You guys know where I think the value is here in this matchup. I think it's on Prado at +220. The kid is just a stud. I think that he obviously will be as motivated for any fight that he's ever had for his career. Making his UFC debut, we should see the best version of him. Do understand that he's only 20 years old, though, so there could be some growing pains. There could be some mistakes made here, without a doubt. But you know what? Let's shake things up. Let's make it fun here. Value on Francisco Prado, and I'm taking Prado to get a first or second round knockout in this fight. Kleydson Rodrigues taking on Shannon Ross. Both men fought on Dana White's Contender Series. Kleydson Rodrigues, obviously a little bit more happy with his performance on the show, being the fact that he did get a victory over Santa Curatolo. Shannon Ross, if you guys remember, he lost his fight against Vinicius Salvador. That was one of the more entertaining fights that we've seen on the show. It was an absolute flyweight slugfest. Shannon Ross got tagged with some major shots in that fight and throughout that fight. He actually started to take control of the match, and was actually looking like the fight could have went his way if he would have slowed things down. He started to solidify some takedowns. He was controlling the fight, but then started to slug it out a little bit more so on the feet, and got clipped with a nasty hook from Salvador's hip. Just an absolute gunslinger is Salvador, if you guys remember. Or if you guys are familiar with Salvador, if you remember what he's about, he's an absolute gunslinger. And Salvador caught him with that hook and put him out. And Shannon Ross, a little disappointed that he made that mistake, being the fact that he is a mature fighter. He was 33 years old at the time. He has a good amount of experience in the fight game, almost 20 pro fights. But you guys know how it is, man. Fighters are always learning. It's not like they stop learning even if they're up there in age. I expect him to take that experience and to have made him a better fighter. He gets an opportunity now to fight in the octagon. We knew it was coming. We knew even when he lost that fight, he was going to get an opportunity. So hopefully he handled that situation and took that whole situation the right way. Because essentially that fight, even though he got brutally finished, it was almost a win in a way, if you guys catch my drift there. Kleydson Rodrigues had the victory on the show, and then he makes his UFC debut against CJ Vergara, and he drops a split decision. And I don't think that was by any means a solid performance by him, no matter how you spin it. He was the favorite in that matchup. He was supposed to go out there and get the job done, and he didn't. Whether or not you thought that he should have got the job done, whatever. Kleydson Rodrigues, a solid striker, a fighter that does show to have some promise, and surrounds himself with some great talent. I mean, you see some legends of the game as far as the Brazil mixed martial arts scene. We're talking about legends here: Renan Barão, Thiago Santos, Alan Patrick. Still got the hair blonde, always dyeing the hair blonde there. So he's surrounding himself with some of the best in the world. Kleydson Rodrigues, I think that there is potential for him to have a comeback victory here. Obviously, he's been groomed by the Nogueira brothers over time. Initially fighting out of Team Nogueira. I do believe he's bounced around a little bit. Was handling business over in Jungle Fight, which you guys know is one of the bigger promotions over in Brazil. A couple victories over there. Had a rear naked choke victory over Eduardo Henrique, a 5-0 undefeated fighter at the time. Listen, I think that Shannon Ross is a well-rounded fighter and could easily go out there and do something similarly to what we just saw CJ Vergara do. But something tells me that the younger fighter here in Kleidson's going to kind of clean things up a little bit more so from that last fight. And I think that Kleydson has potential to land some big shots on the feet. We've seen that Shannon is there to be hit. Just 3 fights ago, Shannon Ross got hit by a rear naked choke by Steve Erkeg, who was 5-1 at the time. That's a little bit of a questionable loss there on his resume. Shannon Ross is a good fighter, but you know what? I was close to pulling the trigger on him as a dog. Kleydson will have a 1-inch reach advantage. Both guys 5'6". I'm gonna take the younger Kleydson Rodrigues. I think that we see his game take a more of a step up here from his last fight compared to Shannon Ross with that loss. Give me Kleydson Rodrigues to get the job done. There is potential that he gets a knockout victory here. Shannon Ross walks forward. He pushes the pace, and he is there to be hit. So Kleydson Rodrigues, a -325 right now in Bovada. .lv. If you guys are looking to sign up, reach out to me. I'll send you over that referral link and I'll hook you up with some free plays. Shannon Ross plus 255. I think the value is without a doubt on Shannon Ross here. Like I said, he's a competent fighter here. He's very hungry and he can go out there, use some wrestling, mix things up, and he could definitely snag a victory here. So a plus 255 line. I mean, if you're chasing value, that's probably the route you want to go if you're analyzing this fight. But I think that Kleydson Rodrigues overall should get the job done. But a minus 325 line, that's pretty high there. Keep an eye for Kleydson Rodrigues to get a second or third round knockout victory. In this matchup. Keep an eye for a finish possibly coming via Kleydson Rodrigues. Another fun one here in the featherweight division. We have Joshua Culibao taking on Melsik Baghdasaryan. A little bit of a striking matchup here. Both guys do enjoy throwing down on the feet. I think this does have the makings to be a fun fight. Joshua Culibao really starting to put his name on the map as of recently. A recent victory, split decision victory over Song Woo Choi. That was a fight that should have not been a split decision victory. Culibao went out there and looked very good and got the job done. Landed some big shots. He dropped Choi there, and that was his fight. Point blank, period. You guys all know that. So a good performance from there. Before that, a victory over Shailin Nurdenbeck. He had that split draw against Charles Jourdain where the judges' scorecards were all over the place. One judge, I think it was Mike Bell, scored it a 10-8 round for Jourdain in the third. And then you had one judge giving every single round to Jourdain, and then the other judge, having things going for Culibao with that 10-8 round. It made it a draw. Those scorecards were all over the place, but we know Jourdain's a talented striker. That was a fun fight. You can definitely take some things away from that fight because Melsik kind of has that kickboxing type style, as does Jourdain. Melsik Baghdasaryan, a sniper on the feet. He's no joke. Another fighter that came over to the UFC from Dana White's Contender Series, training out of California. Another Armenian fighter. I do believe putting in that work with Ronda Rousey's old coach. I do believe that he has put in some work with him. Name slipping my mind, but you guys know I'm talking about the guy that had the unibrow, Count Draculus. And listen, Melsik Baghdasaryan, he's 31 years old, only has 8 pro fights. The time is now. He needs to start being more active. He needs to start going out there and getting some finishes and making a statement out there in the octagon. This is the opportunity for him to do that. Coming off a victory over Bruno Souza, a victory over Colin England where he had the finish there, and then that Dana White's Contender Series fight where he had a toughly fought match against Denis Bazukja. This is going to be the fight of Melsik Baghdasaryan's career. This is going to really give us an idea of how far he's going to push it and the potential he has. Same could be said about Joshua Culibao. I mean, if he's really going to take it to another level, if he can get a victory over Melsik, obviously that's a big deal as well. Both guys similar in height, a 1-inch height advantage for Joshua Culibao, a 3-inch reach advantage for Culibao, as we expect. We expected Culibao. He's a rangy dude. He's a long frame dude. Here's the thing. I like what I've seen from Melsik. He's just a little bit more technical here for me. I'm going to be edging Baghdasaryan to get the job done. I think he could land a big shot here. He's always live for a knockout. He's a ferocious fighter there. Culibao can take it, and he has all the potential in the world to make this a very close scrap. The line will reflect this fight. The majority believing this should be a fight that plays out closely. But I'm going to be edging Baghdasaryan here. I like what I've seen from him. He's a fighter that really shows to have some promise, in my opinion. And right now, there's a slight lean on Joshua Culibao as he's a minus 115. So about as minuscule of a underdog as we could say Melsik Baghdasaryan is. This is a pick'em fight. I like Melsik Baghdasaryan, so you guys know that means that I think that the value is on that Baghdasaryan line. Keep an eye on Baghdasaryan to have cleaned up things with this game. Again, this is a fighter that came over from the kickboxing world. He's cleaning up things with his overall mixed martial arts game. I guess the same could be said about Culibao as well, but I like Melsik here. He just has a little bit more pop on his shots. Give me Melsik here. Tyson Pedro taking on Modestas Bukauskas, the Baltic Gladiator. Modestas Bukauskas, was cut from the UFC after his Khalil Roundtree loss. If you guys remember, that was a brutal fight where he got a side kick to his knee and his knee kind of hyperextended. But he goes over to the regional scene over in Cage Warriors and gets 2 victories in a row. Most recently, a knockout victory against Chuck Campbell. Now, Tyson Pedro, you guys remember he had a long layoff, was out the game for quite a while, about 3 years before he made a return to the cage, gets a finish over Ike Villanueva and a finish over Harry Hunsucker. As you guys know, we like to refer to him as Honeysuckle. Two lower level fighters, if we're being honest, right? Straight up. He comes back to the UFC and does what he should do against those lower level fighters, but you still got to give him credit. And you got to wonder, is it that he just came back and he's fighting lower level opponents, or is it that, he was working on his craft, refining his overall skill set, and you're starting to see a better version of Tyson Pedro? I kind of lean towards that direction. Tyson Pedro, 31 years old. I think that he worked on his game while he was out of the octagon. He obviously has a nice frame for the division. He's a good athlete. He's a well-rounded fighter. He could strike. He could grapple. Modestas Bukauskas, he's a tough dude. Did win his UFC debut against my boy Andreas Michailidis. If you guys remember, that had a funky ending to that whole fight. But then did go on a 3-fight losing skid, getting knocked out by Jimmy Crute, Michal Oliasejczak, and Khalil Roundtree. All reputable fighters in the game, as is Tyson Pedro. And I'm going to be leaning Tyson Pedro to get the job done here. I've liked what I've seen from him as of recently. Modestas Bukauskas is a little bit stuck in the mud. As Connor once said, he is that type of fighter. He's a little bit slow. Does carry a little bit of an oomph with his shots. He's a solid dude, has nice, big, thick legs. He could check kicks. He could throw some heavy leg kicks and whatnot. He can mix it up with his striking, but he's a little bit slow. And I think I will lean the more athletic and more diverse Tyson Pedro here, which he will also have the hometown edge. I think you got to point that direction. And I'm thinking that Modestas Bukauskas falls short in his return to the UFC, which will be a tough outing for him. We know he'll be extremely hungry, but this is a tough test. Tyson Pedro's been looking good. So Tyson Pedro will be a -260 here with the comeback of Modestas at +195. A common theme, these lines on Tyson Pedro have been very high since he's made his return to the UFC. It's definitely worth noting. Let me not forget to tell you guys. If you guys remember, before he took that layoff, he got knocked out by Mauricio Shogun Hua, an aged Shogun, and was also submitted by an OSP, who then went on to have a rapid decline and fall off a cliff as well. So those are two very suspect losses. I'm going to say that there's more value on the Modestas Bukauskas line. I'm not really crazy about Tyson Pedro's line creeping up to that -300 range, that 3-1 favorite type of line. I think that he should actually be more like a -210, -220. Keep an eye on a rejuvenated Modestas who just went out there, got 2 victories in Cage Warriors, and keep an eye on him to potentially make this fight play out closely. So that's how I'm feeling about it. But Tyson Pedro should get the decision victory. I think he takes 2 rounds, and Modestas steals one of the rounds, but it'll be a closer fight than some people think, unless, of course, there's the potential one of these guys gets put out and we see a finish, 2 big boys throwing down. You never know. So that's how I'm feeling about it. Jimmy the Poop Crute taking on Alonzo Atomic Menifield. Jimmy Crute, teasing him a little bit there. Really nothing but respect towards Jimmy's way. I know he's had a tough time as of recently. I still think he's a very promising fighter. Do keep in mind that he's 26 years old. Jimmy the Brute Crute really has a good grappling pedigree, a real good jiu-jitsu game, can push the pace with his grappling as well. He's been working on his striking, but I'll tell you what, I do get a little frustrated with him at times when he goes out there and is just so willing to engage in the striking department when I feel that he has an edge down on the mat. He's not the biggest light heavyweight, and don't get it twisted. I mean, he does have a decent frame, but he's not the almost overwhelming light heavyweight fighter. I think he's a guy that can look to use a little bit of a Cain Velasquez type style in the light heavyweight division by pushing the pace, using his jiu-jitsu, using his striking to set up takedowns, and he's a fighter that could really exploit guys that are not well versed down on the mat. And at times, the narrative in the fight, I should point out, obviously, because a lot since has changed, but in the Jamal Hill fight, people wanted to see him really push the takedowns. I did. I wanted to see him push the takedowns and push the grappling a little bit more. So Jamal Hill has shown, though, that's not that easy. But I really don't believe that it was the right game plan to go out there and strike it out with a guy like Jamal Hill. I think he's more dangerous with his striking, especially early in fights. I think that Crute should have tried to push the grappling a little bit more so. But Jamal Hill is just a tough task, as we're seeing the current light heavyweight champion. So Jimmy Crute, 12-3, victories over Modestas, Bukauskas, was working the leg kicks, knocked him out there, pulled off a Kimura submission over Michal Oliasejczak. That's impressive. You guys know we do hold Mihail in high regards. But you know what? Alonzo Menifield does a lot of things similarly to what Jamal Hill does. And if Jimmy Crute, back to that narrative we talked about, if Jimmy Crute is going to be willing to go out there and just slug it out with Alonzo Menifield, if he's going to have confidence in his striking, he's going to be sitting out there trying to work that kickboxing game. Alonzo Menifield can drop a bomb on you and put you out. There's no question about that. And I think Jimmy Crute will be playing with danger there. He's coming off a knockout loss already, so the brain has been rattled as of recently. I like the fact that he took over a year off. That is good. He's a young fighter. That was a smart move. The brain should be rested a little bit after taking that concussion that he took against Jamal Hill, which if you guys don't remember, it was a brutal knockout. But Alonzo Menifield will be live here for the knockout, in my opinion. But overall, Jimmy Crute is the more well-rounded fighter here, but I don't want to see him fall in love with the striking. I want to see him changing levels, pushing up against the cage. He has to get this fight down to the mat at one point in time in this fight. I need to see him work some jiu-jitsu. Even if you don't get Alonzo Menifield down to the mat, we've seen Alonzo Menifield stifled against the cage. William Knight just did that to him recently, if you guys remember. But also keep in mind that Alonzo Menifield has been working on that part of his game, and as of recently, he's shown to have not be as easy to hold against the cage. He's obviously has went back to the lab and has worked on those things. So that's a problem there if Jimmy can't do that. I'm gonna lean Jimmy Crute to get the job done here. Like I said, he's a little bit more well-rounded. He's a -210 favorite. I think there's more value in Alonzo Menifield at a +170 line. Putting over 2-1 odds on a guy like Jimmy Crute, who I just feel like you're playing with fire. I could see him get touched so easily in this fight. I mean, I really could. I could see him getting hit with the big shot. And he's a fighter that, although he's talented, has dropped the ball and made those types of mistakes in his fights. Let's also point out, the fight that he had against Misha Serkinov, where he got caught in that Peruvian necktie, where he just went out there, made a rookie mistake, was just way, way too overzealous, went in there and pushed things too much, where he could have slowed things down and really picked Misha apart from the outside. So making a rookie mistake there. The Anthony Smith fight, his leg gave out on him, had that leg injury. So, I mean, I don't want to put him under a magnifying glass there, but you kind of wonder how his body holds up if Menifield's hitting him with some big shots. I just think there's some potential for things not to go Jimmy Crute's way. So I'm not crazy about that line. I'm going to edge him to get the victory here, but that line should come down, and the value's on Menifield, in my opinion. And you keep an eye also on a finish and inside the distance for Menifield. You know what time it is. Porker Porter stepping back into the octagon, looking to land some heavy shots, Porker style here. You guys know one of the fan favorites of the show. Porker, just such a cool dude. He's came into a lot of his fights underrated as an underdog, and he's had some big victories throughout his career. Now he's coming off a loss here. I mean, look at the movement on him right here, man. Just absolutely beautiful. Some of the most underrated boxing in the game. My boy Porker there, taking the trip out to Perth, Australia, taking on a hometown favorite in Justin Tafa. All jokes aside, listen, Porker Porter is a fighter that has been underrated. Yes, he did just go out there and get beaten down by Jelton Almeida, but who hasn't that stepped into the cage with Almeida? Porter, 3 victories in a row before that, all against lower level guys in the division, Alan Budat, Chase Sherman, and Josh Parisian. Before that, the knockout loss against Chris Dawkins. Chris Dawkins really fell off a cliff himself, but I got nothing but love for Porker here. He's coming in as a slight underdog, and you guys know I want nothing more than to side with my boy here and Pork, but he's 37 years old. He's about to be 38. He's coming off that beatdown. Justin Tafa, is a fighter that has, kind of been under the radar. He's not the most active fighter, but when he steps into the cage, man, there's a good chance that he's landing a big shot. He has the kickboxing pedigree, and he goes out there and he puts his opponents away at times. And, coming off of a head kick knockout against another lower level heavyweight fighter and Harry Hunsucker. I mean, these are without any disrespect, these are two lower level heavyweight fighters that are fighting on the main card because they deliver fun fights, right? But before that, Tafa gets finished, or excuse me, loses to Jared Vandera, loses a close fight to Carlos Felipe. So even though he lost that fight, that was a fight where he went out there and showcased that he could throw down for 3 rounds. Before that, had the knockout victory over Juan Adams. That was an impressive performance. Landed another big shot. He lost to Jorgen De Castro. Before that, got clipped with his own shot and got finished. Oh God, I really, really want to side with my boy Pork here, but my gut is telling me that you put all things into consideration and that this should be Tafa's fight. But I think that Pork has all the potential in the world to make this a closely contested matchup. You know, Porker, he mixes his boxing up nicely, throws the leg kicks. Obviously, he could take a lot of damage. He's a solid dude. But I'm thinking that Justin Tafa, with the youth going his way as well, he hasn't even cracked 30 yet. I think we see a better version of himself. Maybe he comes in here a little bit more trimmed as well. We keep an eye on that. Obviously, he's tipped the scales a little bit. Both men 6 foot. Pork has a 1-inch reach advantage. I'm not too concerned about that. I think this has all the potential to be a very closely contested match. But although I want to pick Pork for fun, I have to keep it real with you guys, keep it professional, and I see Justin Tafa taking this fight. I think he just lands the more crisp shots, the heavier shots, and maybe shakes things up with the finish on the feet. Give me Justin Tafa in his home continent of Australia. And as far as the line goes, the line's pretty accurate in my opinion. That's what I'm thinking. A Justin Tafa minus 140. So no matter how you want to go with that, if you're really craving to have that action on Pork, as you guys know that are watching the show, he's kind of a hometown hero for us over here at the MMA Fortune Teller channel. He's a guy that brings us a lot of joy. He makes our weeks go by a little bit easier when we think, we think of Pork just hitting the pads like we just saw and just stepping into the cage and throwing down. If you're really feeling that type of energy, if you're getting a plus 115 line, I don't think that you're doing yourself a disservice. You're getting some dog value there. And potentially he shakes things up and wins a decision, which he does. In all seriousness, Porker does have underrated volume and speed for his size. So there's an opportunity for him to use his boxing to kind of outpoint Tafa there. But I think Tafa lands the heavier shots, and I think he's a little bit more polished with his striking. Give me Justin Tafa. The line extremely accurate. Randy Rude Boy Brown taking on Jack Della Maddalena. This is a big time welterweight matchup here. Although Jack Della Maddalena has only fought in the octagon or fought in the UFC, what do we got here? 3 times? Yeah, he has 3 fights spanning over the last year. The knockout over Pete Rodrigues, a guy that probably should have been fighting in the octagon at the time, fighting in the UFC, but he got an opportunity. You got to give credit to Jack for how he looked in that fight, though. It was a striking matchup, and you just saw once again how polished Jack is with his striking and his boxing. Goes out there, finishes Ramazan Ameev with a liver punch. That was extremely impressive. That really let us all know what he's about. And then he goes out there and he knocks out Danny Roberts. We know he looked good on Dana White's Contender Series against Angelusa, put on a clinic against Angelusa, a fighter that trains with the best of them, has a good striking background as well. So all 4 performances by Jack have been very, very impressive, hence all the hype that he has behind him. Randy Brown, 32 years old, pretty much in the prime of his career right now. This is the biggest fight of his career. He's on a 4-fight winning streak. If he can get this victory over Jack, he takes a lot of that hype with him. Had the submission victory over Alex Cowboy Oliveira. Had a decision victory over Jared Gooden. A split decision victory over K.S. Williams in a closely contested match that could have went either way. And then he goes out there and pulls off the decision against Francisco Trinaldo. He's been squeaking by with these decision victories or these little W's here and there. Randy needs to go out there and needs to get a big-time victory. He's at the top of the rankings in the division. He needs to make a splash and really shake things up so he can continue to push towards the top. And I think that Randy just, at the end of the day, will have his hands full against the silky smooth striker in Jack here, the tricky southpaw who just seems to be living in the matrix as he just stays inches away from his opponent's strikes, a little bit similarly to what Anderson Silva did in his prime. If you guys catch my drift, man, when you break down tape on Jack, I mean, he's just always just out of range by an inch or two and just counters beautifully. And that's what I expect to see in this matchup here. I expect to see Jack out of range for the extremely rangy Randy Brown, but still, I think that I'll give Jack the benefit of the doubt to say that he'll maneuver around those strikes and he'll counter beautifully like he always does, slipping and ripping. Looks to be in phenomenal shape here. I am siding with Jack Della Maddalena. I've liked what I've seen from him. Randy Brown will have a 5-inch reach advantage. He is 4 inches taller, but that's nothing new for Randy, right? Randy goes into his matches typically the much more rangy and lanky type of fighter. And I don't think that it's going to overwhelm a fighter like Jack, who's just been looking really good. But I want to make it clear, Randy Brown is a very talented dude. And as we are going to slide over to the betting line right now, where you're going to see that Randy Brown's a pretty hefty underdog. I think it's, got to be careful with the words I throw around. Is it disrespectful if I'm going to say that it's an accurate line at the same time? I got to be careful how I say that. But, just when I see that plus 250 line next to Randy Brown, it's a little surprising to me because he is a well-rounded fighter, and he's a fighter that can really go in there and get his arm raised against the best of them on the right night for himself. That being said, I really like what Jack's doing right now in the cage, and I don't think it stops here. I think that Jack goes out there and handles business against Randy. Of course, Jack will have the hometown edge as well. I think he'll just be the sharper striker. He's well-rounded enough that he can handle anything else that Randy wants to try to throw his way. Jack Della Maddalena, only 26 years old. I mean, can't wait to see him when he's 30 years old. Only 15 pro fights. And how do we feel about the betting line? Jack Della Maddalena, minus 325 line. I really want to say that that's a little bit too high of a line, personally, and I got to say that the value is on Randy Brown. I do feel like I have to say that. I mean, we got to give Randy some respect here. I mean, he's a plus 250 dog. I mean, are we going to say that that's an accurate line and that Jack should go out there just steamroll him? Potentially, yes. But Randy can mix things up. He has some grappling. He's a big boy. I mean, he has a real nice frame on him. That reach we talked about. Maybe he can kick from the outside and try to score some points there. And sometimes Jack gets a little bit overly confident with his striking defense, as we talked about, just slipping out of range and whatnot. I mean, we're talking about, 4-inch gloves, or we're talking about a shin or an elbow or a foot upside your head, shaking things up. Randy Brown, I know, if you take a look as of recently, you don't see a lot of finishes there, but especially due to via strikes. But I think that potential is always there for Randy. He throws some wild shots, or some heavy shots at times. Jack Della Maddalena to get the job done, though. But I'll say that line's a tad bit high for me to be mixing in parlays and whatnot. We got the intern UFC Featherweight Championship belt on the line here. Yair Rodrigues taking on Josh Emmett. And if you guys didn't know, Josh Emmett is pulling the beard out for this fight, pulling out a little bit of his inner Viking self. He's looking to be very, very dangerous stepping into this match with Yair Rodrigues. We know that Josh Emmett has perennially been an underrated fighter. He's a fighter that has came in as an underdog many times before and has handled business. We know he has some of the most underrated power in the game. I mean, if you want to say it's underrated, some of you guys are aware. I mean, if he touches you, you could easily be taking a nap. I mean, you take a look at Josh Emmett's career here. Josh Emmett, the Team Alpha Male product. Let's run the tape back on him a little bit. Doing his thing since he joined the UFC, taking out guys like Scott Holtzman, John Tuck. Lost a close match to Des Green. Unfortunately, you guys know that the deal with Des Green kind of disappeared from the fight game. But Ricardo Lamas, he knocked him out there in the first round. That's when we really started to see what he was about. I saw the Jeremy Stevens fight live. He did get finished there. That was a fight where he just went out on the shield, 2 guys throwing down. He got clipped. Since that loss, goes out there, knocks out Michael Johnson, just touches him, puts him to sleep, knocks out Mirsad Bektik. Victories over Shane Burgos, Dan Ige, and Calvin Kattar. All those impressive victories. Those are without a doubt reputable names. We saw Dan Ige is still about that action. We saw him going out there looking phenomenal in his comeback fight. So that performance that Josh put on against Dan does carry more merit when you really dissect it. Calvin Kattar, an extremely polished striker, a very close fight, but we got to give credit no matter how you looked at that fight, whichever way you thought that fight should have went. You got to give credit to Emmett, just once again showing that he could land power shots. He's accurate. He could do a little bit of it all. Josh Emmett does have that wrestling background. This is something that I want to point out to you guys. let's take a look at how Yair Rodrigues has faced off against wrestling opponents or opponents that have that wrestling background. You know what happened when he faced off against Frankie Edgar. That was back in 2017. He was a much more green fighter, but Frankie just ripped him down to the mat and beat the crap out of him. Before that, at that point in time, hadn't really fought in any type of wrestlers. Alex Caceres, a jiu-jitsu striker type of guy. Andre Feely, a scrappy type of guy in the feet, jiu-jitsu guy. Dan Hooker, a kickboxing jiu-jitsu type of guy. Charles Rosa, a jiu-jitsu striker type of guy. The Korean Zombie, a striking type of fighter. Jeremy Stevens, a fighter that was going out there looking to just take your head off. I mean, that's really what that fight was about. You know, what happened, the two fights, he had the eye poke and all that. The loss against Max Holloway in a striking match, it is what it is. And then he goes out there against Brian Ortega. Brian Ortega gets injured. You know, that's what we're looking at from Yair Rodrigues right now. I know that Yair is such a fun fighter to watch. And of course, we do have to once again mention the Korean Zombie knockout with 1 second left, one of the most phenomenal knockouts you'll ever see. But do remember, he was losing that fight and was on his way to losing a decision there as well. Yeah, he looked phenomenal against Jeremy Stevens. I give him credit for that. But other than that, there's not really a lot to go on. I mean, there's some there, but I mean, maybe he's a little bit overhyped based on the fact that he's such a diverse striker. He's so explosive, and there's so much potential there. But Josh Emmett's a fighter that has proven it. He's proven it. He's going to have that wrestling edge, in my opinion. I think that we could see him solidify some takedowns here in this matchup. Now, the one thing I obviously don't like is the fact that he's about to be 38 years old. There's definitely a disadvantage in the age here as El Pantera is creeping into his prime, and Josh Emmett has to be on the decline. But when you take a look at the beard, you know, a little bit of grays in the red there, a little cotton candy beard. I mean, I don't know, man. Josh Emmett seems to be a man on a mission. I'm obsessed with winning my first world title. Yeah, I mean, when you read that caption there, if you guys can see that here, I'm obsessed with winning my first world title. I believe this guy. I believe this man. I think this is an extremely dedicated fighter who I'm going to be edging to take out the phenom, the young talented Mexican phenom. I'm going to be siding with the underdog here in Josh Emmett. There's potential. Emmett lands a big shot as they scrap it out in the feet, and then more importantly, it's the wrestling of Emmett's that I think may play a factor. Josh Emmett's a plus 141 underdog here with the comeback on Yair Rodrigues at minus 170. I obviously feel there's more value in the plus 141 line on Josh Emmett. This is going to be a fun fight. The intern featherweight championship belt in the line. I would really be happy to see a guy like Josh snag that, you know, especially after reading that caption, even though we've known what he's about. This is a dedicated fighter. I'm leaning Josh Emmett. You guys got to let me know. Comment below who you guys taking there. Hey, you guys, real quick, as you know, if you sign up through bovada.lv with my referral link, I'm giving you guys some free official action, some free plays. And for a card like this, you guys know I got to step it up. So we're doing the special offer where you could have 2 free packages for any cards that you guys like. You're definitely going to want to start it with the UFC 284 package because I got some special spots that I feel very good about. But if you guys are interested, shoot me an email or DM me on Instagram or Twitter, and let me get that referral link to you. You guys will get an added bonus into your guys' account, again, as well as 2 betting packages. All right, guys? Don't hesitate, man. Reach out to me. Let's get it. The UFC Lightweight Championship of the World on the line here. Number 1 and number 2 best pound-for-pound fighters on planet Earth throwing down. We talked about it a little bit earlier. I am very excited for this match. This has obviously been a fight that has been under the radar, and a lot of people have been talking about that, right? I mean, Dana White not even being able to remember Islam Makhachev's name as he was just at the press conference after this last weekend's event. Little disrespectful. Yes, I do believe this fight has been a little bit under the radar, but go on YouTube and you'll see the countdown video. I mean, if you're hyped up for this fight, there's content out there, and the real hardcore fans, we know what this is about. Not to say that like this is a fight that's that much under the radar. I mean, again, it is the number 1 and number 2 pound for pound best fighters in the world throwing down. Yes, obviously, even the casuals know what's going on, but you guys catch my drift. I think this is a fight that could have been hyped up a little bit more. The fact that Islam fought so recently and just sneaking right back into the cage is just, I feel like this fight card has just crept up on us. Volkanovski is the number 1 pound for pound fighter, as Islam's number 2. Obviously, the winner of this fight will be the pound for pound best fighter in the world. That's a huge title. Islam Makhachev, you guys know, just went out there 2 months ago, about 3 months ago, made quick work of Charles Oliveira. That was an official play of mine. You guys know I was always rocking with Charles Oliveira for a long time, but this guy Islam, he's a different type of fighter. He's so well-rounded. He is one of the more complete fighters that I think we've ever seen. And if it wasn't for that one mistake that he made against Adriano Martins, I believe it was, when he got clipped back in the day. Of course, we saw that fight live, and it was a stunning knockout. If it wasn't for that mistake, I mean, we're talking about a perfect fighter in Islam. He should be 24-0, but did make that mistake. But chalk that up, put that to the side. This is a fighter that's looking to do Khabib type of things. These guys just don't lose. We see what Umar Nurmagomedov as well. These guys are just, Khabib, these guys are something else. They have a little bit of something else going on. And as much as I respect and look up to a guy like Alexander Volkanovski, who has something going on as well, an absolute stud, Islam and the Dagestani boys just do it a little bit differently. And you guys know we're leaning with Islam Makhachev. He has the size advantage here. He's 4 inches taller. Although Alexander Volkanovski has a 1 inch reach advantage. You got to love that. But Islam is the bigger guy here. And when they lock horns and they clinch up and they lean on each other, I got to say that Islam's going to be getting the better of those exchanges. On the feet, Islam showing how well-rounded he is, just dropping Charles in their last fight. Although I think that Alexander Volkanovski can throw down with anybody on the feet, has a beautiful jab, great boxing. He's well-rounded, nice leg kicks as well. Listen, I'm extremely high on Islam Makhachev. As I said, I was very pleased at the line I was able to get against Charles Oliveira, because Charles was still hyped up. He was the current champ. I'm obviously picking Islam Makhachev to win this fight. I think you have to lean with Islam. But let's go take a look at the live betting line of Bovada.lv. Islam Makhachev is a minus 400. Volkanovski's a plus 300. I think that lines off. I think the value is on Alexander Volkanovski. He's an absolute stud. Do not put it past him that he goes out here and is able to potentially keep this fight on the feet, where he can have a chance to win a close battle on the feet, striking it out Islam Makhachev. Now, if you guys remember, Islam Makhachev had a closely contested matchup with Arman Tsarukyan, right? When Arman was able to hang with him in those wrestling and grappling exchanges, he was able to make that fight play out closely. Yes, Islam did get the job done, but that was against a very young Arman Tsarukyan. Alexander Volkanovski is not a very young Arman Tsarukyan. Alexander Volkanovski is the number 1 pound for pound best fighter on planet Earth that can do it all. I think there's a chance that Alexander Volkanovski keeps this fight on the feet and makes this a striking matchup that plays out closely in a tit for tat type of style of a match. So the value, in my opinion, is on Alexander Volkanovski at plus 300, but I am going to pick Islam Makhachev, as pretty much I expect everyone to be. Unless I'm wrong, comment below if you're picking Alexander Volkanovski to get the job done. Let me know if you're putting an official play on Alexander Volkanovski. I want to see those plus 300 bet slips or those tags out there. Comment below. We got a hell of a card taking place this upcoming Saturday. I am pumped for it, and it definitely ends with that main event there. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up UFC 284 taking place in Perth, Australia. I think that this event is definitely worthwhile. Throw some of the drinks on ice, call some of the friends over, get a little party going. I think it's worthwhile. We talked about how the card's a little bit top heavy, but when you got some of the big matchups at the top of the card like we do, I think it's worth a little gathering. So that's what the teller will be about for UFC 284. We'll be throwing some drinks back, having a good time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode here. As you guys see, the channel is evolving as I promised, but understand that this is nothing. You're going to see rapid changes with this channel over here at the MMA FT headquarters, week to week. Big things coming up. I appreciate all you guys that have been supporting me, liking these videos, subscribing to the channel, following me on my social media, spreading the word. Appreciate you guys more than you'll ever know, as I always say. And I hope all is well with you. I'll leave you with some closing thoughts. As you guys know, I like to do. I do just want to leave you guys with this. I won't go too much in depth about it, because you guys know I never try to make it that type of show here. But I just hope that all you guys are free thinkers and you guys are thinking for yourselves. think about what I'm saying to you guys. If you guys are watching all these mainstream shows and these award shows and all that, man, there's just a lot of stuff being shoved down our throats. And you know, I hope that you guys are free thinkers, and you know, whatever decision you make in your life and whatever decision you make as far as how you analyze things, I hope that you guys just are thinking for yourselves and you guys aren't just programmed to think these things. So make sure your eyes are wide open and you catch on to things, especially when some of them are just blatant, extremely blatant. These days it's almost comical, but you know what, the world that we live in today, unfortunately, there's a lot of easy prey and a lot of easy victims that just fall right into the traps and just go along with things. But you guys, hopefully you guys catch on to what I'm talking about here. I think you guys do, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are free thinkers and free spirits, and shout out to you guys there. So I'll leave you guys with that. Much love to all you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy the fights. Catch me on Instagram and Twitter all throughout the week, where we will be having a lot of MMA content coming your guys' way. Stay up to date with me here, and you guys can expect more content coming to you guys through YouTube as well. As you guys see, stepping it up with the channel. So I will be seeing you guys very, very soon here. All right, guys. You guys all have a blessed week. Signing out. Teller.
Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.